If you were named after a grandparent, your family made a deliberate decision, not just a sentimental one, a cultural one, rooted in a tradition of name inheritance that goes back thousands of years across almost every civilization that has ever existed. That decision encoded something ancient into your name, something about which bloodline your family considered most important to remember, which ancestor they most wanted to keep alive, and which cultural tradition told them that keeping a name moving forward through generations was the most sacred thing they could do for the dead. The practice of naming children after grandparents is not random and not simply sentimental. It is one of the oldest deliberate cultural acts in human history, appearing independently in almost every major civilization across every continent. Ancient Mesopotamia, classical Greece, ancient China, pre-colonial Africa, medieval Europe. The fact that it appeared independently in so many separate cultures tells you something important. It was not an idea that spread from one place to another. It was an idea human beings kept arriving at on their own. Because it solved a problem every culture faces: people die. And when they die, everything they were begins to fade. Within 3 generations, most people are forgotten. Within 5, almost no trace remains. Naming a child after a grandparent was the oldest solution human cultures found to that problem. It kept the name alive. It forced every subsequent generation to say the name out loud, at dinner tables, in introductions, in prayers, ensuring the person behind the name was never entirely gone. But it did something else. It created a naming pattern, a recurring sequence moving through a family across generations that, once you know how to read it, tells you more about your bloodline's cultural origins than almost any other piece of family history you can find. The most systematic grandparent naming tradition in the ancient Western world was the Greek one. Ancient Greek families followed a naming convention so consistent that modern genealogists can reconstruct entire family trees from fragmentary records. The firstborn son was named after his paternal grandfather, the second son after his maternal grandfather, the firstborn daughter after her paternal grandmother, the second daughter after her maternal grandmother. This was not casual preference. It was a cultural expectation so strong that deviating from it required explanation. Greek inscriptions and papyri from the classical period show this pattern repeating across family after family, creating naming cycles that moved grandfather names down through grandsons and great-grandsons in a rhythm as predictable as a heartbeat. When Greek culture spread across the Mediterranean through Alexander's conquests, this naming convention traveled with it, embedding itself in Jewish diaspora communities, in the educated classes of the Near East, and eventually in the early Christian communities that inherited Greek cultural practices along with the Greek language. If your family has Greek, Jewish, or Middle Eastern ancestry and you carry a grandparent's name, your family may have been following a version of this Greek naming cycle for 2,000 years. Without anyone in your living family knowing where the tradition originally came from. In Celtic culture, the relationship between a name and its bearer was more intimate and more supernatural than the Greek administrative tradition. Celtic peoples, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Breton, did not simply believe that naming a child after an ancestor kept the ancestor's memory alive. In the older pre-Christian layers of their tradition, they believed it could transfer something of the ancestor's essence into the child, their strength, their wisdom, their particular relationship with the spiritual world. This belief is visible in Irish mythology in the concept of the Deen Shenchas, where names were understood to contain the spiritual reality of what they named, rather than simply referring to it. A person's name was not a label. It was a piece of the person. Transferable, inheritable, capable of carrying something of its previous bearer forward into a new life. This is why certain names in Irish and Scottish family trees repeat with extraordinary persistence. Not because families ran out of names, but because those specific names were understood to carry something worth preserving beyond mere memory. The Jewish tradition of grandparent naming is one of the most genealogically informative patterns in human history, because it splits along a specific cultural line that tells you exactly which Jewish community your family came from. Ashkenazi Jewish tradition. Jewish communities from Central and Eastern Europe. Names children after deceased grandparents only. Never living ones. The belief is that giving a living grandparent's name to a newborn would confuse the angel of death, potentially causing the angel to take the child when it came for the older person of the same name. This means in an Ashkenazi family, a grandparent's name appearing in the next generation is a precise genealogical signal. It tells you the grandparent had already died. It gives you a relative chronology. And in families where the tradition was followed consistently, the recurring names create a naming map of the family's losses. Each repeated name marking a death, a grief, a generation's refusal to let someone disappear. Sephardic Jewish tradition. Communities from Spain, Portugal, North Africa, and the Middle East names children after living grandparents as well as deceased ones. The same name. The opposite rule. An act of honor rather than mourning. If your family has Jewish ancestry and you carry a grandparent's name, which tradition your family followed points directly to which Jewish cultural world your bloodline came from, with a precision no other single piece of naming evidence can match. In American family history, one grandparent naming tradition above all others left the most traceable genealogical pattern. The Scots-Irish Presbyterian tradition that settled the Appalachian backcountry in the 18th century. Scots-Irish families from Ulster and the Scottish Lowlands followed a convention almost as systematic as the ancient Greek one. The firstborn son was named after the paternal grandfather, the second son after the maternal grandfather, third son after the father, the firstborn daughter after the maternal grandmother, the second daughter after the paternal grandmother. This convention was followed with remarkable consistency, creating naming cycles that genealogists have used to reconstruct family relationships where direct documentation is sparse or missing entirely. If your American family has been in the South or Appalachian regions since before 1800, and you can identify this firstborn son paternal grandfather sequence in your family tree, you are almost certainly looking at Scots-Irish Presbyterian ancestry. And the grandparent names themselves are pointing back across the Atlantic to the specific Scottish or Ulster communities your family came from before they crossed the ocean. The name your family gave you is a compass, and it has been pointing home the whole time. If you were named after a grandparent, your family was doing something ancient, something Greek families did 2,000 years ago, something Celtic peoples believed could transfer a soul's essence forward, something Jewish communities used to mark their losses and their loves, something Scots-Irish settlers carried across the Atlantic and embedded in the American frontier. They were refusing to let someone disappear. They encoded that refusal in your name, and every time someone says your name out loud, the person they were trying to keep alive gets kept alive a little longer. Subscribe. See ya.